Over the last few years, things haven't quite gone to plan at Manchester United Football Club. Whether we're talking transfers, performances on the pitch, or just club dealings as a whole, it's not been the best time to be a Manchester United fan, and today I'm going to take it upon myself to try and change that. Because I'm stepping in as Manchester United manager over the course of the next 4 episodes, over the course of 4 seasons, I'm going to try and take this club to Champions League glory. So Erik ten Hag is out, and yes, I know he's won an FA Cup, but let's be honest, his tenure isn't going anywhere, and I'm going to try and get the club to the point where it's winning trophies like this on a regular basis and building back a club that Manchester United fans can love. Now, despite their recent issues, they've still got great players, Bruno Fernandes being one. I'll be hoping Matthias de Ligt can be a huge part of our defensive rebuild, and whilst he can be a divisive figure, I think Marcus Rashford could be key on that left-hand side. And whilst a lot of the attention around the club seems to be pretty bleak, there are some great young players with a lot of potential. Kobbie Mainoo is certainly one of those. Now an England international, he'll be key in our midfield. Starboy Alejandro Garnacho will hopefully be a big player. And let's not forget Lenny Yoro either, who's so good Man U had to fight Real Madrid for his signature. But if we're being honest, this squad is still nowhere near the level it will need to be to try and challenge for a Premier League title. And that's backed up by the fact that Football Manager thinks we've only got 16-1 odds of winning the title, and we're predicted 5th place. Competition-wise, we are in the Europa League for our first season here, where the board want at least a semi-final finish. Obviously, it's not quite the Champions League, but I'd still happily win the Europa League any day. But to win trophies like that, the club is in need of a rebuild, and there's some big decisions we're going to have to make early on about who stays and who goes. As you can see, there's a lot of big-name players whose contracts are up at the end of this first season, from Amad Diallo to Johnny Evans, Lindelof, Maguire and Eriksen. We're going to have to make a decision on all of those guys. And transfer budget-wise, the club seem to have used up most of their funds for this season, with only £1 million for me to spend. So I think my first job in pre-season is going to be to get some players out and bring some players in to try and take this team to a level where we can at least qualify for the Champions League. And despite that small budget, we were actually able to bring in a player to help our team, but it did require us selling on one of our current players. And that was Victor Lindelof, one of the only players I could get out the door that I wanted to sell. I couldn't get rid of some players. Casemiro, we're looking at you. But yes, Victor Lindelof has moved on. Thankfully, West Ham were interested. They offered him a pretty big wage as well, and a Swedish international has left the club for 15 million, which I think is probably not a bad sale. And that meant we could then bring in a new player to help bolster our midfield ranks. But before I show you him, I'll give you a few seconds to go down, smash the like button for me. It really helps the videos, and subscribe to the channel as we push for 50k subscribers. But that's all done. Make sure you've done that. Let's go see the player. And I know what you're thinking. Lewis Ferguson, who the hell's that? How is he good enough for Manchester United? Well, I'm trying to adopt a different strategy here with Man United than they have done over the last few years, where they've spent a lot of money on players that haven't quite come good. I'm trying to find players that suit the tactical profile of the squad I'm building, that hopefully will help build this club up and get them back to the level they once were. So yes, I know he's not a star name, but Lewis Ferguson is a very good player. He's a 24-year-old Scottish international, a very good all-round midfielder who's been signed from Serie A side Bologna, where he was doing so well under Thiago Motta in real life last season. He's cost us 25 million, formerly of Aberdeen. I know Man United have just sold on a Scottish midfielder, but I've got a new one in. I think he's a dynamic option, a great worker as well in the middle of the park with 17 work rate, and fingers crossed he's going to be the kind of player that can really help our other players with more quality shine. But I did mention I'm building players to fit a tactical system, so let's show you that tactic. It's a 4-3-3, which yes, Man U do play in real life, but this is a very aggressive gegenpressing style. We're going to be hunting down every ball and looking to counter-attack at the first opportunity. I want to bring back the days of the fast, free-flowing football that Manchester United fans were used to, scoring plenty of goals while still having a rock-solid defence. Now, it's not necessarily the team that I would play, but if you were to ask Football Manager, this is what our best 11 would be considered in this tactic. You're looking at Mazraoui, De Ligt, Martinez and Shaw in front of Onana, with a midfield of Mount, Fernandes and Casemiro, which, if they can all stay fit, could be a good midfield. Then Antony, Rashford and Xerxes, and it's probably in those attacking areas I feel like we lack a little bit. But I am trying to think long term with the club, which I feel like they haven't done enough recently, and I am planning for the future. So the likes of Kobbie Mainoo will be prioritised over Casemiro's minutes, and I'll be doing that in other positions too. For example, at centre-back, our best options are of course De Ligt and Martinez, with even Maguire and Johnny Evans currently considered better than Lenny Yoro, but I promise you, Lenny Yoro will be playing plenty of football this year. Now obviously while I was doing those transfer dealings, we were playing some pre-season football, and I'll be honest, didn't go too great. We drew 3 games, we only won 1, and we lost another one, and we didn't really play any major sides, but our first test was up in the Community Shield against none other than Manchester City. And we gave them a proper good game. Xerxes scored the opener after 31 minutes, but his debut goal was quickly cut back when Manchester City scored, John Stones finding De Bruyne to equalise on 39. We then had a corner just after the half-time whistle, and it was powered home by Martinez, but of course the big Norwegian forward Erling Haaland wasn't having any of that, and he made it 2-2 with the help of De Bruyne. But we didn't give in, we kept pressing, and you can see the press working here, Anthony finding Xerxes, who put us 3-2 up, before Haaland scored from a spot to equalise and take us to penalties. And it went to sudden death when Kobe Mainoo missed his shot. And that was that. We had lost our first official game as manager, losing the Community Shield, but a 3-3 draw with City isn't too bad. We gave it a good go, our tactics seemed to be working, and even though our youngster Mainoo missed, we're not going to let that affect us. We're going to keep playing him and hope for the best going forward. Now heading back to the season preview, after the transfer business that we've done, we're now only predicted 15-1 instead of 16-1 odds of winning the title, so clearly things have got a little bit better, but that was all to be tested in our first game of the season against Tottenham Hotspur. It was a big clash and a very tight game at Old Trafford, but we managed to get the advantage, Xerxes finding Eriksson, scoring against his former club and getting us our first win as Manchester United manager. So all looked to be going well, and for the first few months of the season, I think we could say it was pretty successful. But then in the next game, we played Aston Villa and we lost 4-0, so it was definitely a back to reality moment for us. A 2-2 draw with Brentford followed, and I started to think things might be going wrong, but we were soon back to winning ways, beating Wolves 3-0, and from there, we went on for the next 2 months to not lose a single game. We drew 1 in the Europa League, but we can forgive that. But an early exit in the Carabao Cup to Everton seemed to spark a bit of a downturn. A 3-2 loss at Anfield followed by a 0-0 draw against Fulham, and it all reared its head in an ugly 3-0 loss against Arsenal. After that, our form was mixed to say the least, and between November and December, we were picking up wins and losses and draws, and there was no real consistency in it, and before we knew it, we were already back around playing Aston Villa again, as we did at the start of the season. We were a few days away from the new year, and we were hoping that it would be New Year, New Manchester United, when Amad Diallo played the ball in and Garnacho managed to score. And whilst we've only been at the club 6 months, maybe this was a sign of progress, because before we knew it, Xerxes had made it 2, and just to seal the deal, Garnacho got the ball in the 70th minute, found new signing Ferguson, who drove in the area, and scored to win. So at this stage, despite the mixed form, we're still very much in contention for a Champions League spot. We've got 36 points, 6 losses, 3 draws, and 11 wins coming up till January, and we have Arsenal sitting at the top of the table, 9 points ahead of us. But of course, January is a big deal, because it now meant that we could start bringing in some new players to try and help this squad. But to raise funds for that, a big sale was needed, and I was delighted when I saw a huge offer come in for Casemiro. Al Ahly in Saudi Arabia offered him £1 million a week, took him off our hands for £48.5 million. A great deal for a player that had been playing this year, but not playing very well, and someone that was certainly past his best, and I was happy to bring that money in, especially when you see the player that we were able to sign in his place. But before I show you him, if you want to continue these rebuilds yourself, you can find the save files over on my Patreon for every single rebuild that we've ever done. Of course, it helps support me as a creator, and I'm very thankful for it, but if you want to join the hundreds of people that continue these rebuilds, I'd massively appreciate the support over there. But let's go and see who we bought in. Don't worry, this isn't the big signing I was leading up to, but this was a player we were able to get for the money. I recruited a 19-year-old young French defender. He was playing for FC Nantes in France. He's cost us 6 million. I've loaned him back out for the season. The transfer could rise to 8, but he is someone who could have a big future in our defence. His name is Nathan Zeze. But the big one, Lucas Paqueta, has joined Manchester United. He was on the transfer list. The Brazilian 27-year-old was available for 35 million. I don't know what had happened to him at West Ham, but he clearly fell out with the manager despite his great performances, so we were able to bring him in. He bolsters our midfield and means we're not so reliant now on players like Bruno Fernandes. But speaking of reliance, Joshua Xerxes is someone that we have relied upon a lot this year. The new Dutch signing has scored 9 goals in the Premier League. He's got 16 goals in all competitions, which is way more than anybody else, so he's been a huge help this year. And I'll be honest, we need as much help as we can get. We've already been knocked out of the Carabao Cup, and now it was time for our first game in the FA Cup, and let's just say, it didn't go too well. Now, we were up against Championship side Burnley, and we were hoping it would be an easy win to get us in round 4 of the competition, and it looked like it might be when Rasmus powered one home after 11 minutes. A very Van Persie-esque goal there for Manchester United, but unfortunately, Burnley weren't just sitting and watching that in awe. They came up the other end only a few minutes later and equalised. We were then able to add a second, Garnacho finding Ugarte, who managed to knock it back to Garnacho, who then scored, but we did then get Luke Shaw sent off, and that seemed to allow Burnley to grow into the game. We held out until the 70th minute, still with that 2-1 lead, but they came forward on the left, found Rodriguez, who made it 2-2, and then calamity struck in the 87th minute. Lenny Yoro fell asleep, Matthijs de Ligt with a bad ball, and Burnley scored to knock us out of the competition. We had 13 shots, they had 4, it doesn't matter, they beat us 3-2. Thankfully, we did manage to bounce back against Brentford, but with lots of games coming up, including a Europa League round of 16, we need to really get up to scratch because we're currently out of 2 cup competitions, and the board are really on our backs now to start getting some results. And despite some blips here and there, we were able to get some good ones, like when Lenny Yoro helped us to beat Liverpool. But the biggest sign of our progress as the season went on was against Arsenal, who, remember, we lost 3-0 to at the start of the season, but at Old Trafford, Garnacho opened the scoring to make it 1. And in this second half, we really started to pile on the pressure. Mazraoui and Anthony linking up on that right-hand side, managing to pull the ball into the area for a goal. An own goal, mind you, but I think Anthony is going to claim that one. We then were able to make it 3-0 against Arsenal, youngster Kobe Mainoo proving why we backed him up as he found Højlund in the area to make it 3. And if that wasn't enough, Rashford pounced on a William Saliba error, you don't see too many of them, to allow the ball to eventually find Christian Eriksen, who scored another for us. But it definitely felt like in the second half of this season we were controlling games a bit better, picking up some more results, and whilst there was some draws here and there, things were certainly on an upwards trajectory, and that continued in the Europa League where we'd made a quarter-final. And with it being the only cup competition we were now in, we really wanted to get far, and thankfully we were drawn against French side Lille and we managed to dispatch them comfortably to make it to a semi. But we were soon brought back down to the ground when I saw who we were up against in the semi-final. It was none other than French giants PSG. They first came to Old Trafford and they took the lead through Goncalo Ramos, but we were in good form and we wanted to show that against the Parisians, Garnacho getting in the area and making it 1-1. Marcus Rashford then did miss a penalty, but we still managed to get a second goal, Garnacho on the right, finding Xerxes in the middle, who tucked it away to put us in the lead. But late on in the game, a headed away corner found Vitinha, who played Asensio, whose deflected shot broke our hearts. So it was 2-2 and we were now heading to the Parc des Princes needing a result to make a Europa League final. And unfortunately, an early penalty from Asensio put PSG in the lead, and a second goal really killed us off. We were unable to gain any momentum in this match before Fabian made it 2. It was 4-1 aggregate, and unfortunately, that was the end of our Europa League run. Not a bad result in terms of who we lost to, but still, we wanted to really make the final of that and try and win a cup competition, especially when the league wasn't going the best it could, because despite a late resurgence and some consecutive wins towards the end of the year, we finished in 5th place, 1 point away from a Champions League spot, 13 points away from local rivals Manchester City, who won the title. Aston Villa finishing just above us is something that I think we wish we could have changed, especially when we only lost 9, but we drew so many matches that really affected us this year. We were joint on goal difference as well, but it wasn't to be. It looks like it's going to be Europa League football again next season. So it was a mixed bag of a first year, but at least there was some things that we could take as positives, like Lenny Yoro's development, who has grown into a very good centre-back for us and hopefully still has a big future to grow still. Kobe Mainoo maybe isn't as good in Football Manager as he should be compared to real life, but we're starting to get him to that level with the development that he's shown. And in the end, Xerxes did manage to help us out quite a lot. He's scored 22 goals in all competitions this year, with Højlund scoring 13, 14 for Garnacho, and also 14 for Rashford. So there's plenty of big goal scorers in this team, and we're going to need them going forward if we're going to try and push for a Champions League title. Now, I have made some big decisions on players' futures. Johnny Evans' contract is up, we're not renewing it. And despite his efforts this year, the same can be said for Christian Eriksen. He was pretty good for us across the course of the season, but I don't want to rely upon him long term, and also he was on £170,000 a week. So with the business we've done, in next episode in season 2, we're going to have £70 million to spend and 170 grand of wage budget to keep improving this squad. But how do you think we did in season 1? Let me know if you think it was a success or not, and let me know if you're liking this new format, something I'm trialing for the next couple of weeks with this rebuild with Manchester United, as opposed to the long form 40-minute single episode 5-season blasts that we normally do. We're going to try and pace this out a little bit different, so let me know your thoughts. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in episode 2. Manchester United are struggling, and I've taken it upon myself to try and take them back to Champions League glory. That's right, I've taken over from Ten Hag, and I've got 4 years as manager to try and deliver them the ultimate prize in world football. And I'm hoping I might be able to help the club do that, as this year in season 2, I've got a pretty big budget. But before we recap season 1, make sure you go back and watch the last episode if you haven't already. Spoilers ahead from what's happened so far. So, whilst we were aiming for the Champions League in year 1, we haven't even qualified for it. We'll be playing Europa League football in season 2, missing out by a point in that Champions League spot in our first year in the tenure. But maybe that'll be good for us, because after all, we didn't even win the Europa League last year. We just missed out losing to PSG in the semi-final. But after letting some older players go like Evans and Eriksen at the end of their contract, and moving on dead weight like Casemiro and Victor Lindelof, I've managed to pull funds together to try and really improve this team, and I think we've done so in season 2. But we started the summer with some outgoings. The first one to leave the club was Amad Diallo, who's gone to play in Serie A for Monza. He's left for a fee of 7 million, with only a year left on his deal and not playing much last year. He wanted out, I was ready to cash in, so off he goes. Jadon Sancho, of course, another one that's ended up leaving the club. He was on a loan at Chelsea, and they managed to make it a permanent deal, signing him for 25 million after a pretty good year at the London club. Last year's signing, Nathan Zeze, has been loaned out for the year to gain some experience. He's gone to play for Strasbourg. Having done a pretty good job at Nantes, this is a step up for him, so we're hoping he can really live up to expectation. But after those, there was a major sale. Manchester United fans, hold on to your seat. I apologise in advance for what's happened, but we have lost Bruno Fernandes. He has moved on to join Al Hilal. They came in for him, and he decided he wanted to move on for a new challenge, aka he got offered £1.2 million a week, and I don't think he was ever going to turn that down. We did get good money for him, to be honest, but I didn't want to upset a club leader. I wasn't necessarily hanging on to him either. Like, I didn't think we really needed him completely anymore. We got 95 million quid as well. It's a lot of money for a 30-year-old. We were then able to reinvest that in some new players for the team, which I think take us to another level, but I'll let you guys be the judge. But first, before I show you that, if you are enjoying the video, make sure you smash the like button, or if you just want to be nice, and subscribe on the road to 50k. It really does help me out by doing all that stuff, interacting with the video, so thank you to anyone who does that. But now, let me know what you think of these transfers I've brought in. Don't worry, this isn't exactly the shout home transfer. This is just one my director of football picked up that I thought I'd mention. Max Elien. The director of football thinks he could be good enough to make the first team squad one day. I'd argue otherwise, but he picked him up on a free from Manchester City's academy. But now on to my signings. Now, I mentioned in season 1 that I was really trying to kind of change the philosophy around Manchester United to sign players for good value that give us good quality and fit the system, and even have resale value in the future instead of buying these real big names that don't tend to work out. And I think I've done a great job of that, particularly with this signing. I've signed Oscar Zambrano, who is a 21-year-old Ecuadorian regular international playing alongside the likes of Moises Caicedo, Kendry Paez, and we got him for only 2.7 million from Liga de Quito, a club out in Ecuador. Now, I have loaned him back out there for a year to keep up his experience, but he is a great personality. I'm trying to change that in the club as well. I want to have some brilliant personalities around the team. 20 determination, a determined personality style. Yes, maybe not the biggest leader, but he is going to be performing well on the pitch on a regular basis, I hope, and with a lot of potential to grow for the value we signed him. I think this could be a gem of a deal. The other signing for the future, I suppose you could say, was Rooney Bargi, who famously scored for FC Copenhagen against Manchester United in real life the other year. Now we have bought him in and loaned him back out to his Danish club for the season. He's came in for 16.5 million quid after a good year in season 1 for the Danish side. I think he's got a huge future. He's going to feature on that right-hand side down the line for us, but for now, we've bought him in, we'll loan him out, he'll continue his development, and then hopefully become a world-beater in our team. But again, we didn't spend crazy money on him. After that, it was all about looking for value in the market for players that could improve our first team currently, and I think again, we've done a good job of that. We've signed players for the future, but also signed players that could help us out right now. Take Ryan Aït-Nouri, for example, part of the Wolves team that was relegated in season 1, and for that reason, he was available on a cut price deal for only 17.75 million. He is joining us, and the Algerian will hopefully be good competition for Luke Shaw. Tyrell Malacia is still here, mind you, but I think Aït-Nouri probably goes above him in the pecking order and could become a very good left back for us, particularly with Luke Shaw's injury problems. He only cost us 17 million, and then for 18 million, I've bought in another option to improve the squad. Now, I don't quite know if this one will work out to the levels I have faith in the others, but Marcus Edwards was available for a release clause free from Sporting Club de Portugal, where he was good last year. £18 million it was, so still less than 20 mil, which is a bargain these days for an Englishman who's 26, room to get better, can play on both wings, and even if he's only a squad level player for us, I think that's not a bad deal. But then we get on to our major signing, one that I think really does help us long term. It's Nico Schlotterbeck, who was available from Borussia Dortmund for a fee of only 38 mil. He was on the transfer list. I guess he had fell out with their manager, Nuri Sahin. He had played well last year, so I was surprised by it, but 38 mil is a great deal for a German international, 25-year-old, heading into his prime. We've got De Ligt here as well, Martinez, and Lenny Yoro, and if that isn't 4 good centre-back options, I don't know what is. I'm delighted to have him here. But I know some of you are going to be sitting there saying, but Jay, you didn't mention Harry Maguire in the centre-back options. Well, it's because I've loaned him out. In fact, I tried to sell him in the last year of his contract here, but no one wanted him, so he eventually just got rid to get his wages off the books. He's gone to Salzburg for the season. They're paying £4 million for it. There's an optional 7 mil fee at the end of it, but his contract's up at the end of the year. I assume they'll just take that option. But either way, we can say goodbye to Harry Maguire. But it wasn't just in terms of transfers where I was looking to change the club. I've also been asking the board to invest in the club's facilities. Often something that Manchester United fans feel like is being left behind. I've asked for a stadium improvement, didn't quite get that yet, but they are willing to improve the academy coaching and the youth recruitment, which is all now at a very good level. So if we can keep improving those, we can keep Manchester United at the forefront of world football and hopefully not slip away as time goes on. So in a bid to win the Champions League in 4 years, we've managed to move on some deadwood, bring in some great players, I think at least. We've managed to upgrade the club's facilities. I'm also looking to change the club's tactical philosophy. Now last year we were playing a gegenpress system. We are continuing that, still a 4-3-3, but some of the roles have been adjusted to be slightly more attacking now to hopefully get the best out of some of our star men. This is what we're going for. The last tactic was kind of built to help players like Bruno Fernandes, but with him leaving, this is now what we're looking at. It's actually a pretty good team when you look at it on paper. Our best 11 supposedly is Onana with a backline of Dalot, De Ligt, Schlotterbeck and Shaw, which I think is a pretty good defence. In front of them, Ugarte, Mount and Paqueta is a talented midfield with Rashford, Garnacho and Højlund supposedly as the best of the rest. But of course, there's loads of players in that squad still that could come in and do a good job for the team and hopefully help us compete on multiple fronts this season. Now, despite everything that I've just said about improving the team, we've actually gone down in our season preview. We were predicted 5th last season with 15-1 odds of winning the title. Now it's 20-1 odds and we're predicted 6th. Now, does that mean we've got worse? Has everyone else got better? I guess that's up for debate, but I think we're heading in the right direction no matter what that Football Manager media prediction says. I feel like this could be a big year for the club, especially when you see our friendly performance so far where we've only conceded 1 goal and we've managed to score plenty. I mean, we actually beat Bayern Munich 4-0. Was it their best team? No, but it's still a big result, although we have got a very tough test to start the season away to Arsenal. In year 1, it was mixed results against the Gunners. We lost 3-0 at the Emirates, but then beat them 4-0 at Old Trafford. But this time, away against them, we managed to win 1-0 with a brilliant Rashford goal. A Joshua Zirkzee double then helped us to a win against Brentford, before a slight setback at the London Stadium drawing 2-2. But we then completed the month with a 3-0 win against Fulham, and that was a great start to the season, which continued across the next few months for us. One brilliant win in that few month period was against promoted side Leeds. Of course, one of Manchester United's biggest rivals, Mason Mount, scored before we sealed the deal in the 85th minute, a Luke Shaw corner finding Schlotterbeck, who managed to pull it to Anthony of all people, found it back to Shaw, who managed to finish brilliantly to get us the win. But it wasn't just long-term rivals that we were beating, we were also beating some league rivals that were competing for the same position as us. Take Chelsea for example, a side that much like us will be looking for a top 4 finish this year. We managed to get a first goal against them after only a minute through Kobbie Mainoo, an excellent strike. And before we'd even reached the 10-minute mark, we'd made it too. Mount, Mainoo and Rashford linking up, and we sealed the deal late on. Our high-pressing gegenpress system helped us win the ball back, Rashford getting the ball in the area, driving to the byline before Xerxes tucked it away. So all in all, everything was going really well, and I felt like this really might be the year where we could actually not just push for top 4, but maybe mount a title challenge. The next game though was our biggest test yet, away at Anfield against Liverpool, and let's just say we were humbled pretty quickly. McAllister finding Darwin Núñez for the first goal. Within 5 minutes they'd managed to make it 2, unlucky from Aït-Nouri, but he managed to put the ball in our own net. If it wasn't already bad enough, Luis Diaz continued giving our defence a tough time. Rabiot finding McAllister, who powered home. Look away Manchester United fans, it only gets worse. A free kick, bobble into Luis Diaz to make it 4, and then it was 5, Alexander-Arnold sealing the deal. So after being pretty positive at first, a lot of doubts definitely creeped in after that game. We did manage to bounce back against Anderlecht, winning 3-0 in one of many wins in the Europa League, but then it was another big test, this time Manchester City at Old Trafford. And I think this game really showed me what it was like to be a Manchester United manager. We just lost 5-0 to Liverpool, and then suddenly they pulled a performance out the bag like this. Antony going 1-0 up, Antony again involved playing a corner that we ended up heading in through the lit. Another set piece from the wand of a left foot from Antony ended up finding Højlund on the edge of the area, probably unmeaning so from him to be honest, but Højlund then did pull it and we found Ferguson to make it 3, and the deal was sealed when Ferguson found Højlund to make it 4. And that kind of mixed form then pretty much continued all the way up until January. Win, loss, win, loss, win, loss. I didn't really know where we stood, but I was just happy that we were playing better than last year at least. In fact, come January 1st, we were sitting top of the Europa League table with 6 wins out of 6. And whilst we were a long way off league leaders Tottenham of all people, we were sitting comfortably in 2nd place in the league. 2 draws, 4 losses, and a great start to the season. I mean, I say pretty great, we're not going to mention the fact we lost to Lincoln Red Imps in the quarter-final of the Carabao Cup, which, yeah, we're not going to talk about that one. We're out of that competition. But in terms of individual performances, we've had some great ones this year. Kobbie Mainoo is getting better and better. In fact, he's just been rewarded with a new long-term contract. Marcus Rashford was having that unbelievable season that he tends to have every few years. He'd scored 18 goals in all comps already, 9 in the league in only 20 games. Xerxes had managed to hit 12, Schlotterbeck was one of our best performers, and Garnacho had hit 6. So everything was going swimmingly, and we were hoping it could get even better with the budget we were given. £44 million and plenty of money in the wage budget thanks to all the sales we made. Now that the January transfer window was upon us, it was time to make some signings and take this team to another level to hopefully push all the way to that Premier League title. And in the January market, I must say we did struggle because a lot of teams were raising their prices because it was January, and I decided I wasn't going to act rashly as Manchester United have done in the past, and I decided to sign nobody, but we did let go of a couple of players. The first one was Dan Gore, who we've loaned out for the year because I actually see a promising player here. He's not someone I know much about in real life, but in game he actually looks pretty good. He's 21 and he's ready to take the step up, so he's been loaned out to Luton in the Premier League for the season. Good luck to him there, it will fit him nicely. And if he does well enough, he could actually come back to the first team. But he wasn't the only outgoing sale that I wanted to talk about because another player left permanently. But before I show you that, just to let you know that you can actually get access to these rebuild files and continue them yourself for every rebuild that we've ever done over on my Patreon, which you can find linked in the description if you want to join the over 100 members that we've got over there who continue these rebuild files. I'd really appreciate it. Help support me as a creator as well, and a lot of you guys have fun with it, so make sure you check that out. But let's check out the sale, where finally, after 2 years of trying to ship him off, Tyrell Malacia has left the club. Now, he is a good left back. He's just not someone I wanted around long term. I tried to sell him so many times and he rejected every move. Newcastle, he said no to. He said no to Barcelona, guys. Tell me how that's possible. But either way, he ends up at Al Ain. I don't know who they are, but they're a Saudi Arabian, no, United Arab Emirates club. Forgive me, I usually think it's going to be a Saudi club when they come in with money for a player that I don't want. But either way, 6.25 million. He's done well out there in his his first game by the looks of it. He only played once all this year, so I am not really missing him. But Oscar Zambrano was back at the club. His loan at Liga de Quito was only for half a season, and now he's came back. He did a good job over there, played loads of times and played really well, so fingers crossed he can settle into the Premier League and prove himself a bargain. And I don't want to toot my own horn, but after 4 transfer windows here now, I actually think we've got this squad in a pretty good place. Goalkeeper, there is Altay Bayindir and Andre Onana, perfectly fine. At right back, Mazraoui and Dalot compete for that position. Meanwhile, at left back, you've got Luke Shaw and Ryan Aït-Nouri with other players that can cover that area. Our centre-backs are De Ligt, Schotterbeck, Martinez and Lenny Yoro, and that's not a bad set of centre-backs to pick from. In defensive midfield, you've got Ugarte and plenty of others that could fill in there if needed, but really Mason Mount, Paqueta, Mainu, Zambrano and Ferguson I see as more forward-thinking midfielders. On the right-hand side, you've got Garnacho and Anthony as well as Marcus Edwards. On the left, of course, Rashford then comes into the equation, as does Mason Mount, and then up front, Højlund, Xerxes and Rashford prove to be 3 great options, all valued pretty highly, all doing fairly well and doing their bit. Now, despite all the good business that I've done and the fact that I have actually sold more than I've spent in the last couple of windows overall, there is an issue at Manchester United financially, because the club is in a negative £180 million balance despite all of the players' wages that I've managed to get off. The debts and loans aren't looking great either, and really this team needs Champions League football if we're going to keep that money rolling in. They get plenty in sponsorships and whatnot, and we'll also get the league money and stuff at the start of next season, but we really need to get Champions League if we are to keep this club going in the direction I want them to. So it means that we have to beat teams like Arsenal when we come up against them, and we did that in a very convincing display at Old Trafford, doing the double over them this year. Schlotterbeck opened the scoring. Arsenal then did pull a goal back through Bukayo Saka, his trademark left foot shot, but Rashford managed to put us in the lead from the spot before sealing the deal later on, linking up with Aït-Nouri on the left hand side, managing to get the ball back to him in the area and scoring a goal. He's building a nice partnership with the former Wolves man. And with that, we were heading into the second half of the season in good form, with players all playing well in the Europa League where we'd done so well already, and still in the FA Cup, so it was all to play for still. And we really kicked into gear as the season went on, beating the likes of Leeds 6-0, which any Man U fan would have loved. We also beat top of the league Spurs 2-1 at Old Trafford, and got a great win against Liverpool too. But I mentioned Spurs a second ago. They were having a great season, not just in the league, but also pushing all the way to the semi-final of the Europa League, where guess who they were facing? Us. Now, we lost 1-0 at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, so then when they came to play at Old Trafford, it was all to play for. They were in red hot form, and so were we, and it was probably one of the games of the year as Son scored. So at this stage, they're 2-0 up, and they made it free. Onana's back pass, a poor one, finding Son, who again finished well. Now, the Manchester United of recent years would be down and out there more than likely, but with me at the helm, things were a little bit different with the squad we've built, and we did manage to get back in the game. Rashford finding Højlund, it was 3-1. Not too long afterwards, Garnacho, Ferguson and Mazraoui played some brilliant football to open some space on the right, which was able to find Ferguson and make it 3-2. Now, there's only 26 minutes on the clock at this point, so it was definitely an engaging first half where Spurs managed to get another one, 4-2 on aggregate now. They then scored from the spot to make it 5-2 on aggregate, but we managed to claw another goal back, Rashford helping Xerxes make it 4-3 on the night and 5-3 overall. But unfortunately, that was as far as we could go. We did score 3, but we conceded 4 at Old Trafford, not good enough, and it meant once again we crashed out of the Europa League in the semi-final stage. But this year in the FA Cup, we had also made a semi-final. So off to Wembley we went, up against Liverpool, where Garnacho managed to open the scoring. It was then 2 not long afterwards, De Ligt powering home from a corner. Martinez and Ugarte made a mistake in the defence, which led to Mo Salah pulling a goal back. But it wasn't long before we made amends. Kobbie Mainoo, growing into a great player in this FM side, found Garnacho onto Ferguson, who'd found his shooting boots and made it 3-1. Towards the end of the game though, the hearts did go in the mouth after Szoboszlai scored, but that was all. It ended 3-2 and we were now qualified for an FA Cup final. But before we got there, we had plenty of league games to play. There was a 4-0 win against Luton, which we followed up with a disappointing 2-1 loss to Man City. We followed that with wins against Bournemouth and Newcastle, and heading into the last game of the season, we actually had the chance to win the title. We needed results elsewhere to go our way, but our job was to make sure we beat Aston Villa. Now, for those of you that did watch episode 1, you might remember in only our second game in charge, we lost 4-0 to Villa, so it was great to see us change our our form around now, 2 years on, Højlund making it 1-0. We won't speak about the mistake from Emi Martinez, but we'll certainly take it. And then just before half-time, we did the business we needed to, Garnacho finding Højlund again, turning it into a real good striker. But the unfortunate news for us was that it was not enough. We finished in second place, 85 points, 2 points away from eventual winners Tottenham. Now, Man City had a late resurgence and started climbing up the title. Rashford did end up being the best player of the year with the most goals as well, so that was obviously a positive, but unfortunately it was Spurs who won the trophy. So the Premier League title in season 2 wasn't ours. We were out of the Europa League by Spurs as well, so they were really the thorn in our side this year. So imagine my surprise when I see the FA Cup final draw, and who is it against? Tottenham. Now, I don't know whether I gave a rousing team talk before the game or whether Spurs were just so in awe of winning a trophy for once that they gave in at this cup final, but we took the lead straight away through Højlund. And we powered on because not long afterwards, Rashford made it too. Did someone say 3-0? Well, Mason Mount certainly did. Played a corner in, which eventually found De Ligt, who knocked it onto Højlund, whose deflected shot made it 3. But why have 3 when you can have 4? When Luke Shaw found Rashford in the area, who managed to tuck it away from close range. Now, I don't know what the record for an FA Cup final win was, but when we got the 5th goal to make it 5-0, we must have been pretty close, if not already getting that title. And could this be the start of something big for our Manchester United team? Our first trophy in the 76th minute, Højlund, Rashford, it was 6-0. We absolutely smashed them, and our first trophy as Manchester United boss was in. Was it the trophy I wanted overall, the Champions League? No, but we've still got 2 more years and 2 more episodes to get that you'll see next week. But for now, we've got an FA Cup trophy under our belt, which is a massive achievement, a 2nd place league finish, and we can hopefully kick on from here. And just in case anyone was wondering, it was not a dominant 6-0 win. I mean, XG wise, it was fairly even. We just obviously got the look of the green. But it's been a real team effort this year, which I've loved to see. We haven't relied upon one single man. Rashford, yes, did score 36, which seems like a crazy year, but you had Marcus Edwards playing really well, scoring 5, Garnacho 17, Xerxes 18, Mount 18, Højlund 25 himself, 15 from the Scotsman Lewis Ferguson, who's really came out of the woodwork, because in season 1 he only played 9 times, didn't do much. Maybe Bruno Fernandes was holding him back, because suddenly this year, with him not there, he has absolutely smashed it. He's had a blinder of a season, and I feel like most of our transfers have worked pretty well. Schlotterbeck has been a brilliant signing for us, I must say, one of the best defenders in the league this season, and we're now going to be heading into our 3rd year with another huge budget, lots of big decisions to make on contracts too, in terms of players that getting towards the end of their deals. Luke Shaw, Anthony, Martinez, they're all on big wages. How many of them are going to stay? Time will tell. But that is the end of episode 2. Make sure you stick around for episode 3. Smash the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe for more. Check out the Patreon. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you next time. Goodbye. Things aren't going amazingly well for Manchester United at the minute, so I took it upon myself to try and take the club to Champions League glory in 4 years, and so far we've had some mixed results, so spoilers ahead for episode 1 and 2. But in episode 1 in our first season, we finished in 5th place on 71 points, just outside of the top 4, and we followed it up next year by getting 85 points, nearly enough to win the title, but just missing out, losing to Tottenham Hotspur. So clearly in the league we're making progress, but at the end of the day, we're aiming to win the Champions League, and so far our European adventures haven't gone to plan. In year 1, we did make a Europa League semi-final, but we lost 4-2 to PSG, and the year after, the team that beat us in the league, Tottenham, also knocked us out of the Europa League semi-final, beating us 5-3 on aggregate. So no European win yet, no league win, but we did manage to win some silverware for the first time last season, as we finally managed to get one over on Spurs, beating them 6-0 in a brilliant cup final. And we've done all of that whilst undergoing a squad rebuild where we've signed some stars and sold off some key players already. Bruno Fernandes was lost to Al Hilal, Harry Maguire was let go at the end of his contract, and Casemiro was sold on to Al Ali where he eventually retired. So a lot of the big earners have left, a lot of our key players have left. We've tried to implement a new recruitment strategy here at Manchester United to sign players that fit the system and not just big names that won't work out. One example is Ryan Aït-Nouri, who we bought from a relegated Wolves. We got a bargain on Nico Schlotterbeck from Dortmund as well on the transfer list, and we signed players for the future like Rooney Bargi of FC Copenhagen. So it's definitely been a mixed time at Manchester United so far, both on the pitch and in the transfer market, but I feel like we are heading in the right direction. But with only 2 seasons to go of this rebuild, we need to try and get closer to this Champions League where we're competing for the first time in it this season. And clearly we're not favourites to win that anytime soon, because the board just want us to be competitive in the competition. The same goes for the Carabao Cup, the FA Cup they think we'll make the quarters, and the Premier League they just want us to qualify for Champions League. So we're clearly a little bit behind where we want to be, but I have brought in some players that I think can really help us this season. But first, there was quite a few sales. The first one of which was Antony. The player that cost Manchester United a bomb has moved to Borussia Dortmund, and as you can see from his valuation at his current club Dortmund, he obviously isn't the player that Manchester United originally signed. They splashed 90 million quid on him back in the day, there or thereabouts. We've had 2 seasons with him where he's not been good at all, whether he started or been off the bench, and we've now sold him on for a very measly fee of 8.25 million, but I wanted him out. I didn't see a future for him. He frees up the wages, and look, yes, it's a big loss, but that's Manchester United's transfer that they made before me, and he's not someone that I want here any longer. Potentially a controversial transfer though, also to Borussia Dortmund, was Andre Onana, who has been loaned out for the season. The reason being is I saw value in the market for a new starting goalkeeper that will last us years, and I've gone for that option, but it did mean Onana, who wanted to be the number 1, wanted to move on for more game time. We couldn't find any suitors for him on a long-term basis, so instead he has gone out on loan to Dortmund for 5.5 million for the season, and the Cameroonian can be signed by them if they want to for 63 mil, but we'll see if they take up that option. But the sale I think we can be very happy with is Mazraoui, who is a very good right back, don't get me wrong, but age 28, when Newcastle came in for him, he said he wanted to move on for a new challenge. I actually think he said he wanted to move to a club with a stronger squad, which, you know, I feel like our team's a little bit better than Newcastle's at this stage, but either way, he decided to go, and we actually got a very good fee for him. 56 million, Newcastle and the Saudi clubs were bidding against each other, and it led to a huge profit on that original £12 million signing from United. So yes, we lost a lot on Antony, but we've made a little bit of that up with this Mazraoui sale. So with the budget we had originally and those sales, we had a ton of money to invest in our team and bring in some better players, and I definitely think we did. But before I show you them, if you could like the video, I'd massively appreciate it. We're aiming for 500 likes before we release the final episode, so go and do that for me. It will be a real help to the video here on the channel. Subscribe if you haven't as well, as we close in on 50k subs. That's a target. If you like rebuilds, then subscribe. We've got plenty of them coming, and comment down below what you think of my transfers and what team you want to see rebuilt next. But with that being said, let's take a look at the signings. And I mentioned that I found value in the market with a new goalkeeper, and it is this guy, Noah Atabulu. Now, if you don't know about him, he is Freiburg's current starting goalkeeper and seen as kind of the future of the international spot for Germany at only age 22, 23. In this world, he's played 2 seasons now for Freiburg as their main goalkeeper and has developed very nicely, but he wanted to move to a bigger club. Because of that, he was transfer listed. 40 million was great value for a goalkeeper that I think could be world class in no time. Our scouts thought he was better than Onana already, and he's only 24, so time will tell if this was a good signing, but I feel like we've pulled one off here. Speaking of signings from the Bundesliga though, we brought in another one with the signing of Eric Junior Dina Mbembe, who is a French 25-year-old versatile midfielder who can also appear at right back if needed. Now, he is not a star in any sense, but he is good at literally everything. All of his attributes are great, so well-rounded, gives us lots of options, lots of versatility, and he will be a great squad player for years to come, I think. Age 25, we picked him up for 16 million from Frankfurt, where he did really well last season, caught the eyes of our scouts, and the former PSG man, I think, is an excellent addition to this United squad. And now for the final signing, also from the Bundesliga. We have spent big money on our new right back. I say big money, well, you'll see in a second. We've brought in Jeremy Frimpong, the Netherlands international 25-year-old from Bayer Leverkusen. Now, he cost us 55 million, rising to 58, which you might recognise is pretty much the fee that we got for Mazraoui. So I actually think this is an upgrade. He's younger, he's got a few years left in the tank, and he kind of suits the attacking style that that we're looking to play a little bit more. He wants to be an important player, and I'm hoping he will live up to that. He is a great option, a brilliant signing at right back, and I actually think in terms of what we've bought in this season, we've been pretty conservative in the market and bought players in that actually suit the tactic and suit what the club needs at this moment. Now, according to the game, this is what our current best 11 would look like. It would be Otabulu in goal with Frimpong, De Ligt, Schlotterbeck and Shaw as a very good defensive line. Now, this is Luke Shaw's last season on his contract, and I think I'm not going to renew it. He's on so much money and he wants so much money still for his next deal, and I'm not sure I want to do that. So time will tell on that situation. But our best midfield is supposedly Ugarte, Dina Mbimbe and Mason Mount, with a forward line of Garnacho, Rashford and Højlund. Now, I know a lot of people in the comments have been saying Rashford's not good enough, maybe in real life, but in game for me, he has served me well. Last season particularly, he was one of the best players in world football, so I've got to keep him around for now at least, unless a big offer comes in. There's plenty of great players on the bench and in the reserve too. I think this all bodes well for the future of this team. Speaking of the future, lots of young prospects will get opportunities this season. Kobbie Mainoo continues to develop in our midfield. Lenny Yoro is ready to break out in that centre-back spot. And Rooney Bargi is finally here. We signed him last season but allowed him to stay for another year at Copenhagen. So he served that, only played a few times for them, but now he comes back ready to influence this Manchester United first team, and I think he'll do that pretty quickly. We are pretty covered in every position. Our goalkeepers are currently Atabulu and Bayandir. At right back, we've got Frimpong and Dalot. At left back, Luke Shaw, Aït-Nouri and Schlotterbeck give us options, whilst he also features as one of our best defenders alongside Martinez, Yoro, De Ligt and Nathan Zeze, who we are currently looking to loan out, so we'll see where he goes. We signed him in Season 1, and I think he's been good value. Midfield, you pretty much know the options that we've already mentioned. Lucas Paqueta is still here, of course, Zambrano and Lewis Ferguson. Then going forward, Marcus Edwards is on the wing with all of your usual suspects. And then up top, we've of course got Højlund and Xerxes ready to keep scoring goals for us. Now, after all of those signings, you might think we'd have, predicted second place based on last year, because we did finish there, but no, we are still predicted 5th, 10-1 odds of winning the title. It could happen, it's just not very likely, and clearly there's some teams considered way better than us, and maybe Mazraoui has made the right move, because Newcastle supposedly are a better squad than us and predicted 3rd place. So it's going to be a tough season. Now, our pre-season has gone well with lots of friendly wins, but we've got a pretty tough start to the season, with our first match being a Community Shield clash with Spurs. Now, they were unbelievable last year, as we know, winning the league and the Europa League and coming very close to winning the FA Cup, but we came here with a chip on our shoulder, and Frimpong got us off to a great start, assisting Højlund. As good of a start to a Manchester United career as he could possibly have wanted, I would have thought. Dina Mbimbe then got in the act with a cross through to Højlund, who scored a second, and that resulted in us getting a Community Shield win. It's not a competition we're really going to shout home about, but it does bode well for the start of this season. Or so we thought, because after beating Brentford on opening day, we went away to Stamford Bridge against Chelsea in a test that we really needed to win, and Mason Mount scored against his old club to get us off to a flyer. But unfortunately, in only our second match of the Premier League campaign, we dropped points, and Nkunku finding Mateus Nunes, who equalised, and that was that. And only a couple games later, things got worse, as Wilfried Gnonto scored 1 for Leeds, and only a couple of minutes after that, Leeds got a second at Ellen Road to beat us 2-0, a very disappointing day for any United fan. So after everything we'd done in pre-season, the Community Shield, all the transfers we've made, we've already dropped points at the start of the year in games we would not have wanted to, and we've definitely had some mixed results. So imagine then when I see our first Champions League game and we've got to play Real Madrid, it's not looking good. Or at least so I thought, because in the 24th minute we actually did take the lead. A corner from Luke Shaw ended up coming back to him, which allowed him to find Rashford at the back post to give us a 1-0 advantage. Another set piece not long after that from Mason Mount found De Ligt, who passed it on to Shaw, and we went 2-0 up. A second half counter attack from Garnacho allowed us to get in on Real Madrid's right hand side. He drove past their defence and made it free, before another set piece goal late on, Mason Mount finding Schlotterbeck to make it 4. So the start of the season has already been as mixed as season 1 and 2 had. I really don't know how to feel about this team, but I was hoping that would be the catalyst for some great results going forward. And it very well may have been, because in the following months we beat Crystal Palace 5-0, Borussia Dortmund 5-1, and a fantastic 6-2 win against Newcastle. So does that mean we had suddenly found our feet and we were playing amazingly well? Well, not really, because we lost 3-1 at Anfield, 2-0 at the Emirates, 4-0 at the Etihad, but perhaps the worst result of all came away at the London Stadium against West Ham, because in the 12th minute they already got a 1-goal advantage, Wan-Bissaka finding Seema for the opener. A
Fulkrug penalty made it 2 before half time, or at least we thought we had a 2-0 advantage going into the break, because not too long afterwards Ward-Prowse found Seema again, who drove a low shot past Atabulu and made it 3. And if that wasn't already bad enough, James Ward-Prowse hit a curler of a free kick which Atabulu spilled, Zuma headed home. Now I've obviously just showed you a lot of losses, but we were getting wins in between as well, and heading into the January transfer window, we weren't doing too bad in all competitions. It was just those odd results where I really wondered where our progress was going. Because we of course won the Community Shield, the Carabao Cup we were knocked out in the quarterfinals by Man City, we were still in the FA Cup, the Champions League we had done pretty well, and we'd already qualified for the next stage after the league phase, and the league table we were 6 points behind Manchester City on 40 points after 19 games. Not too bad. But if we're going to try and make a push for the league title and a Champions League trophy, we need more consistency, and it looks like we might need some reinforcements in the January window, so I got to spending. We started though by parting ways with some players that were complaining about game time, which was bringing the club down. The first one was Lucas Paqueta, who we have loaned out to Sporting Club de Portugal for the season, having only played 3 times this year. He hasn't been as important for us as he was last season, so he goes on loan for the next 6 months, and we'll probably look to sell him when he comes back. Surprisingly, we moved on Altay Bayandыр as well. Our backup goalkeeper has moved to Besiktas now. They came in out of nowhere and offered 18 million, rising to 20, which for our second choice goalie, I felt like I had to accept. Age 28, the Turkish international, goes back to Turkey to play some more. But I also ended up loaning out Joshua Zirkzee. You'll see why in a minute, because we bought in some brilliant attacking players, but Zirkzee has moved to Ajax on loan for the season. He was doing okay for us, but was only coming off the bench. He was upset at that, so we send him to Ajax to keep playing, hopefully develop some more, maybe sell him on when he comes back, or reevaluate his position next summer. But then we get to the incomings, where I feel like we've massively improved the squad, particularly with one signing. The less major of the two, but still a very good signing, was Erkan Kokcu, who has joined us. He's a Turkish 26-year-old who signs from Benfica, where he has been very good, kind of comes in to take Paqueta's minutes. He's also better at this stage of his career. £30 million was the fee for a very talented midfielder that I'm hoping can run the show in our midfield and kind of fill in that Bruno Fernandes void that was left last year. But our big signing was Samu Omaridian, who comes in to compete with Højlund. We have signed him from Porto for a release clause fee of 47.5 million, a brilliant forward that doesn't just provide backup for Rasmus, but will actually probably push him and maybe even overtake him as our starting striker. So we have got a great squad for the future now. He's young and full of potential. Speaking of the future though, just a quick announcement. As some of you may know, I have a Patreon in the description, which really helps support me when anyone comes over, and in return, I usually give out the save files for these videos. Now I am going to continue to do that, but I'm looking to improve the Patreon in a massive way, so we're going to start not just having those save files, but also early video access, which of course you'll get ad-free viewing over on Patreon too. I'm also going to be looking to do some giveaways, live chats. I'm really trying to make my Patreon a great place to be for you guys. Obviously it helps support me, but I want to give as many perks and as many benefits back to you lot. So if you want to come and check it out, I'd massively appreciate it. But let's go see what our best squad looks like now. And it is pretty much what we've seen before, except Kobe Mainoo has now developed into a regular starter for us, and Samu comes in as our best striker. The only issue is he is injured for the first 7 weeks or so he hasn't been registered yet, so he's not going to be playing for a while this season. One highlight of the campaign so far though has definitely been Rooney Bargi, who like I said was on loan last year at Copenhagen. He's came back now and really implementing himself in the first team. 4 goals, 6 assists in 19 appearances, 8 of which he started, so I think they are great returns from the youngster, and fingers crossed he can become a key player for us, and we've needed him in some of the most recent games. Because it was the young Swede who actually got us the opener away at Tottenham Hotspur when Garnacho played it across and he tapped him from close range. Now he did end up going on to lose that game 3-2, but thankfully despite that result, we have been starting to fix some of the errors that we had at the start of this season. One big sin we had to atone for was losing to Leeds at Ellen Road, so when Rashford got us off to a flyer in the first minute after this great run, it definitely bode well. We then added a second from the corner before even the 10 10-minute mark, clearly with a point to prove, but late on in the game we managed to add a third, Ferguson tucking away and giving us a victory. We also managed to settle the score against Arsenal too when Rooney Bargi's corner found the lit. Arsenal did hit back after Kieran Tierney found Saka in the area, but as time ticked on at Old Trafford, we did manage to bag the winner. Aït-Nouri down the left-hand side doing one of his signature drives, playing it across, and an own goal from Saliba gave us a win. So, some much better results all around in the league, but how was the Champions League going? Well, we'd had a brilliant league phase. We qualified for the knockout rounds, where our first game was Celtic, who we dispatched comfortably, leading to a quarter-final clash against Atletico Madrid. As you'd expect against Atletico though, it was a very dull game, quite a boring one, but we did manage to get the winner through Marcus Rashford, and with that, suddenly we were in the Champions League semi-final. Now, of course, the aim is to win the UCL in our 4 years here, but if I can win it in Season 3, I'm not going to complain at all. The only issue is in the semis, we were up against one of our rival clubs, Liverpool. Now, a lot is made of Anfield on European nights, but after this Robertson error in the 15th minute in the first leg, we did actually manage to go 1-0 up away from home through Højlund, and it was the Danish forward who managed to seal the deal in the 90th minute of the game. Dina Mbimbe found him in the area, and he managed to take a low finish past Alisson. Liverpool did manage to pull one back at Old Trafford though. A poor clearance from Schlotterbeck found Federico Chiesa, who managed to pass it to Leao, who scored. And as time ticked on, Liverpool were having plenty of chances, but kind of out of nowhere, Garnacho found Aït-Nouri, who drove a shot in past Alisson to make it 3-1. And with 90 minutes on the clock, Marcus Edwards on the right wing helped us seal the deal. He pulled the ball back to Samu, it came out clear, and a poor mistake from Alisson allowed Kokchu to score, and we were suddenly heading to a Champions League final. Now, we were out of the Carabao and the FA Cup, but we were also playing league matches as well and finding ourselves in a title race. In the final months of the season, we got great results like a 6-0 win at Burnley, a 6-0 win against Cardiff, and a 3-1 away win against Brighton. But the big test was Manchester City, the team leading the title charge. Despite all of our good form, their form had been better, so when we had to play them at Old Trafford, we were hoping if we could get a result, it might put some pressure on them. And we played brilliantly at Old Trafford. Rooney Bargi finding Højlund, who managed to get the opener. Mason Mount was integral in the next goal though, playing a ball to Rooney Bargi on the wing, who found Samu, who made it 2. And late on, we managed to add a third, Mainu to Rashford into the area, into the back of the net, and we had managed to beat Manchester City. Now, like I say, it was between us and them for the title, but despite all of our wins, they've been winning way more. And unfortunately, it was another year of heartache. Now, remember, we were only asked to get in the top 4, and we have finished second yet again, 81 points, but we are 8 points away from Man City at the top of the league. We lost 2 more games than them, drew 1 more than they did, had decent goal difference, but still not as much as them. So they are clearly ahead of us. It's just gutting that for 2 years in a row, we've done pretty well, but ending up falling short. So yes, the domestic cups didn't go well, but in the league, we had done a pretty good job, one that we could be proud of, but of course, we'd be even prouder this season if we could manage to win the Champions League final. The only team standing in our way was PSG. And it was a battle of a game. 2 very tough teams, 2 titans of football going up against each other, but Frimpong missing this tackle on Dembele allowed him to open the scoring after a mazy run. But in the 35th minute, we were able to hit a goal back of our own. Aït-Nouri with a long ball to Garnacho, who finished brilliantly to equalise. And after that, despite chances, there were no more goals until extra time when Lee Kang-in found Goncalo Ramos to give PSG the win. Or so we thought, because in the second half of extra time, after pressing for a long time, Zambrano found Rashford, who brought it down well, played it across to Samu, who scored the goal to equalise. And that meant we were now heading to penalties to decide who would win the Champions League. Up first was Joshua Kimmich, who bagged his penalty. It was Rashford next for United, and he managed to score. Yeremy Pino, a player that we tried to sign ourselves, stepped up to put his side 2-1 up. Up stepped Mason Mount for our second penalty, and unfortunately it was saved. Kang-in Lee was taken for PSG next and continued their 100% record from the spot, before young Englishman Marcus Edwards took it upon himself to get one back. Goal scorer Goncalo Ramos added a 4th for PSG, before Kobbie Mainoo stepped up and tucked it away. And then up stepped Vitinha. If he scored, PSG won. Otabulu came close but just missed, and unfortunately it was another heartache for our Manchester United side. We had lost a Premier League title to one team, and this year, the Champions League, we made it to the final but lost out at the last hurdle. Really unfortunate in all competitions. All we have to show for this great year is a Community Shield, but I think this definitely bodes well for the future, because this season some new stars broke out. We had our usuals in Rashford and Højlund and Schlotterbeck, but Rooney Bargi was one of our best this year. Garnacho did great. Ferguson, Mount really taking a step up into the team, as did Ryan Aït-Nouri, who in the second half of the season had become our starting left back over Luke Shaw. There's more to come as well from Samu, who of course had that injury-ridden season, only played 8 times for us but scored that crucial goal in the Champions League final. I have also made the decision to let Luke Shaw go at the end of his contract, so he's going to be on his way out. And I'm going to have 30 million to spend in our last year with plenty of wage budget, and I'm sure more money once we sell some players to improve this team. The facilities, we've pretty much maxed out. We're trying to improve the stadium, but our board seems to be against it. And in the dev centre, we've got some good young under 18 talents coming through who we can hopefully integrate into the first team and bring through the next class of 92. And with that, the third episode of a Manchester United rebuild is done. Don't forget to like the video if you did enjoy, and I'll see you in the next one in the 4th and final episode. If we get to 500 likes, I'll drop it in 2 days' time. After their poor recent form, I took it upon myself to rebuild Manchester United with the aim of winning the UCL trophy in 4 years as manager. So far, in our first 3 episodes, our first 3 seasons at the club, we've had some mixed results but still have not yet won that coveted trophy. So before we get into this episode and the amazing transfers that I think we've brought in, let's quickly bring you up to date as to where we are so far. So spoilers ahead, go check out episode 1 to 3 if you haven't already, but let's see how things have gone. In terms of the league, it's been steady progress. In season 1, we finished in 5th place. The year after, a 2nd place finish with 85 points, losing out on the title by 2 points to Tottenham Hotspur. The year after, heartbreak again, a 2nd place finish, 8 points away from top of the table Manchester City. On a European front, we crashed out of the Europa League in season 1 in the semi-final to PSG. The year after, we lost to Spurs in the semi-final 5-3. And in our 3rd year, we lost the Champions League final in penalties to Paris Saint-Germain. Now, there has been an FA Cup win in that time. We've been upgrading the facilities and really rebuilding the squad to a good level, but we're still lacking that major silverware to really call our time a success. But like I say, a lot of things have changed at the club. We've seen the likes of Maguire leave, as well as Casemiro, and Bruno Fernandes as well, but we've added quality with the likes of Schlotterbeck coming in, as well as Jeremy Frimpong, and even Samuel Meridian up front. But of course, even with all of that done, we've still only finished in 2nd place. We're yet to win a European trophy, so we had to make some more signings and sales this summer to try and take this club to another level, and I think we've had a fantastic window. So let's start with the sales. The first one was a loan out for our man Marcus Edwards, who's gone to Atalanta for the season. He wasn't playing as much as he wanted, so we're loaning him to Italy. There's a future fee in there should they want to buy him, but his time is pretty much up in a United shirt. Lucas Paqueta was good for 2 seasons, then didn't play much, so we loaned him out last year for the second half of it, where he did well enough to earn himself a move away. He has gone to Marseille for 4.3 million. We just wanted to get him off the books. Lisandro Martinez had came into the last year of his contract, and for that reason, he wanted a new one, but he was asking for far too much. I no longer believed he was a regular starting centre-back anyway. He played 17 times as a starter last season, and that was all, so I've sold him on Al Shabab, Saudi Arabia, 7.5 million. Obviously, we would normally get more, but he only had 1 year left on his deal. Oscar Zambrano proved to be a good signing for us in the end. We signed him originally from Liga de Quito for 2.7 million, and after a loan back there, he joined us, only played a few times across the course of a couple of years, and now we've sold him on to Al Weda in Saudi Arabia for just under 10 mil. Andre Onana was loaned out last season after we brought in a new goalkeeper, and now he's moved on permanently. He's gone to sign for Benfica over in Portugal for 20 million, which I think isn't too bad of a fee considering he went to Dortmund and then did not play at all on loan. And then we have a trio of players heading over to Newcastle who already signed Mazraoui last season. They're playing under Antonio Conte currently, and they've now signed another 3. The first being Lewis Ferguson, who we picked up for 25 million, gave us 3 seasons of service before moving on for pretty much the same fee. Diego Dalot has also left the club, another one that decided it was time to move on for a new challenge because Frimpong came in last year and kind of took over his starting spot, so now he's moved for £34 million. And then there's Joshua Zirkzee, who also joins the Geordies. Now, he was with us originally, and then we loaned him out to Ajax last season in January, having not played much, and now we've sold him on for £37 million. With Højlund and Samu up top, there's no real space for him, and I think we've done all right in terms of the money we got. So, many sales, as you can tell, and with that, it meant we had to make some new signings to really bolster this squad and keep us at the level we already were, whilst hopefully adding some stars to push us on to that new high of hopefully winning the UCL. The most underwhelming signing of the lot is our new backup goalkeeper. We lost our man Bayandir last season to Besiktas, and with Onana leaving, there was no competition for Atabulu, so we have brought in our now Tenas from PSG, formerly of Barcelona and then of the French Giants. He's obviously got a lot of pedigree, £15 million was the fee, and he's happy to be a backup. We've added some depth to our right back and centre back position in one, with one signing of Belgian 25-year-old international Kylian Sardella, who we have picked up from Anderlecht for £23.5 million. He's been playing really well in Belgium, and he gives us good cover in a lot of areas and isn't expecting to be the main man, which is always good to have. Luke Shaw left at the end of his contract at the end of last season, meaning we were able to bring in a new left back to compete with Ryan Aït-Nouri, and we have gone for Italy's #1 fullback, Matteo Ruggeri, or at least he is their #1 fullback in this FM world. After some great years at Atalanta, continually getting better, he is going to be a brilliant player, I hope, for us. 60 million, big investment, but I'm hoping it will all work out. But there was one more big signing, and before we get on to him, I just want to ask you guys, if you could like the video, it really does help me out here on the channel. If we can get 500 likes, that would be amazing, and subscribe if you haven't as well, as we push for 50k subs. Everyone is appreciated, it really does help me out, and let me know what rebuild you want to see next. This is the end of the Manchester United series. Do you want to keep this format? Do you want to go back to the one-off rebuild? What do you want to see? Tell me down below, and I'll do my best to make it happen. But speaking of doing my best to make something happen, when Lamine Yamal was available, I had to pull all the stops to bring him in. He has joined us, a 20-year-old Spaniard from Barcelona, where in this FM world, after the first season, he never really kicked on. I don't know if it was injuries or he got replaced in the team or he never developed, but he was available for 65 mil, which is a bargain. He's still 20. He's not the player that he is in real life just yet, but there is the potential there still for him to become one of the world's best. So we're going to give him that nurturing, give him the game time, and hopefully in a few years we can reap the rewards of one of the world's best wingers. Now, obviously, we still do have the January transfer window later down the line, but currently, this is what is considered our final best 11. We've got Atabulu in goal, age 25, one of Germany's best goalkeepers, with Frimpong, De Ligt, Schlotterbeck, and Ruggeri at the back, which I think is a very, very good defence, all of which aren't too old either. I mean, De Ligt is probably the oldest at 27, I would have thought. Schlotterbeck, also 27 in their prime. In the midfield, it's Ugarte, Mainu, and Mason Mount for a very strong midfield lineup. Then it's Garnacho, Rashford, and Højlund. Interestingly, with all the business we've done, it's still that starting front three that we originally inherited that's doing so well. Garnacho's developed really well, Rashford has been exceptional, and Højlund, I think, is edged out by Samu, but the game clearly doesn't think so. Either way, though, there's so many talents on the bench and in the reserves that we are absolutely stacked for the future. And just to quickly show you that team balance, currently, this is our goalkeeping options. At right back is Frimpong and Sardella, at left back Aït-Nouri and Ruggeri, with the centre backs being De Ligt, Schlotterbeck, Lenny Yoro, and Zeze. Yoro and Zeze have really been taking a backseat over the years, but now that we've moved on most of our defenders, they need to be ready to step up should anything happen to our main two. Then in the midfield, it's pretty much everyone that you expect. A real surprise has been Eric Jr. Dina Mbimbe, who joined us last season and did a pretty good job, despite me not really knowing who he is in real life. Then going forward, there's lots of options. Bargi and Yamal is great depth on the right wing with Garnacho too. But is this team ready to go on to win the Champions League? Well, the game is expecting a little bit more of us now, because last season the board only wanted a Champions League finish, top 4. Now they want us to win the Premier League. The season preview though suggests we should only finish in 5th place. 7-1 odds of winning the title. We've got some of the best players in the league. Supposedly Højlund is one of the best, and based on his form in recent years, it's hard to deny that. The Danishman has been great for us, but there's still 4 teams considered better than us: Jose Mourinho's Newcastle, Unai Emery's Man City, and Carlo Ancelotti's Arsenal. Arsenal, as well as Arne Slot's Liverpool still going strong. The board also want a Champions League quarter-final place, so we're going to have to push on in the UCL if we want to impress them and keep our job. And I would say so far our friendlies have gone pretty well. Won nearly all of them, as you would expect, bar a draw against Bayern, which is not a bad result at all. So everything was ready, our season was ready to go, and we were starting off at Old Trafford against Crystal Palace. And it was actually a pretty tough game. Palace scored 2, but we managed to score 3, all of them coming from our Danish forward Højlund. But clearly we weren't as prepared as we thought, because in our second game we went away to Tottenham Hotspur. We did get off to a flyer pretty early on, Frimpong finding Højlund to make it 1-0, and there was a second just before half time, Frimpong onto Garnacho, who made it 2. Spurs started a comeback in the second half though, Maddison playing a ball forward which found En-Nesyri onto Kulusevski to make it 2-1. And I'm not going to show every goal, but let's just say things kind of unravelled from there, because the game ended up finishing 4-2. We conceded 4 in the second half, a very underwhelming result, particularly considering I thought we'd started everything well, the transfers looked good, I thought this really could be our year. It was time for redemption in our next game though, against rivals Leeds at Ellen Road. We managed to take the lead after an own goal, but once again we just did not get the result we expected. Leeds got an equaliser after a brilliant shot, and in the 95th minute of all times, a goal kick poorly taken from Atabulu found Ramazani, who scored and we lost. So the start of our season was already so mixed, but it got even weirder in the next game, because we beat Newcastle 7-0, a team predicted to finish second. I really don't know what was going on. Rashford scored 4, Mainu with 2, and Mbimbe with 1, and I just did not know where we stood at this point of the season, but I was hoping over the next few months we might be able to pick up some form. And pick up form we did, because in the Champions League phase we beat Inter 4-1, and in the next game it was AC Milan who we beat 3-0. We put 4 past West Ham without reply, and we barely dropped any points over the next 3 months. We were winning games comfortably, beating opposition that I would have considered on a similar level to us, but we had a big test coming up, Liverpool at Old Trafford. And it looked like it was going to be a good day right from the start, because with only 20 seconds on the clock, some poor play from Liverpool found Højlund, who managed to score, and not too long after that, a Ruggeri ball into the box found Højlund, who nodded down for Mainu to make it 2. The first half goal fest continued after a third coming from a set piece, eventually knocked in at the back post, and we weren't stopping there. In one of the most explosive first halves of football we've had in our whole tenure, Marcus Rashford made it 4. But why score 4 when you can score 5? Ruggeri playing a cross in against the back post, pushed away to the edge of the area, Marcus Rashford, what a strike, 5-0, and we absolutely dispatched Liverpool, made it look like an easy win, and that was our big test coming up to the January window. The only other one that we had to face off against was Man City away from home. Now against Liverpool we scored after 20 seconds, but against Man City they scored after 20 seconds and managed to beat us. We followed that up with a 3-3 draw against Arsenal, an away loss to Aston Villa, and a loss to Liverpool in our second fixture against them just before Christmas. So it had been a really good start, but after that little flurry of bad results towards the January transfer window, we currently weren't sitting top anymore. In fact, we were now sitting in 4th place, but only 3 points away from the top of the table, which shows you just how close it was between us, Arsenal and Spurs. Meanwhile though, the Champions League, we had played 6 and won 6, some great results there, and we had made it to the Carabao Cup semi-final where we were up against Man City. But of course, if it's Christmas time, it means January's around the corner, and if January's around the corner, it means we can make some transfers to hopefully improve this team. Now, I didn't really go crazy. There was only one incoming and one outgoing. The outgoing was Ryan Aït-Nouri, who aged 26, decided he wanted more game time, and it was hard to blame him. Ruggeri had came in and really made that spot his own, so he's now moved on for pretty much the same fee that we bought him for from United Arab Emirates club Al Jazeera. But the player we signed was one for the future. A new gem from Palmeiras in Brazil, his name is Renato Luis. We kept him on loan there, he cost 12 million, and whilst we won't get to use him, he is one that you guys will get to continue with should you continue to save files over on Patreon. Now just a word/announcement on Patreon, it's something that I'm looking to put more energy into and make a better place for you guys going forward. So not only will the save files be available on there, but we'll be doing giveaways, live chats, advice on your saves, and even we'll be looking at doing early videos video release with no advert viewing, of course, over on Patreon. So you'll be able to view these episodes a little bit earlier over there, because the people over there really help support me as a creator, particularly in this time where FM25 has been pushed back so long. Obviously, it will affect my revenue. So by improving that Patreon, hopefully, obviously it will help me out, but also give plenty of perks back to you guys and benefits that makes it worthwhile in being there. That's in the description if anyone wants to check it out. But let's get back to our season with Manchester United. Our final year here, all our transfers were done, and we were hoping this team would be ready for Champions League glory. But first up, we had a Carabao Cup final. That's right, we knocked out rivals Man City in the semi-final to make this match, but unfortunately, we were up against another rival in Liverpool. After 4 minutes though, Mainu gave us the opener, but on the 7-minute mark, Liverpool hit back. Szoboszlai on the right wing, managing to beat his opponent, found Rafael Leao with the easiest header in the world to make it 1-1. And in extra time, Curtis Jones pounced on an error with only 3 minutes left on the clock to pick the ball up on the right wing. He found Darwin Núñez, who scored and won the trophy for Liverpool. So that really didn't bode well for the rest of our season. We lost the Carabao Cup final, we had already lost the Champions League final last year, we've been runners-up in the league so many years in a row now, and I just feel like we might end up being the maybe team in this rebuild. But we had started to pick up some more form in the league. Mainu helped us beat Newcastle 2-0 at St James's Park. We dispatched Everton 4-0 on a comfortable victory. And our good form continued with us beating Arsenal 4-2 at the Emirates, giving us a real leg up in the title race. But whilst doing all of that, we were focusing a lot on the Champions League too, where we had started going through the knockout rounds. Because after beating Atletico Madrid in the round of 16 in the quarters, we came up against Real Madrid and Ugarte put us 1-0 up. Before Real Madrid followed in with a corner goal through Camavinga. Rooney Bargi though in the second half helped make it 2 with a corner into Samu. And finally, a goal that wasn't a corner in the 88th minute. We managed to get a 3-1 advantage at Old Trafford, Frimpong onto Ugarte, who powered it home. But despite a lot of pressure at the Bernabeu, we managed to hold out, and in the 84th minute, we secured the win, Dina and Bimbe making it 1-0 on the night, 4-1 on aggregate, and we were heading to a Champions League semi-final for the second year in a row. Our opponents, Bayern Munich, and it was Harry Kane, the former Manchester United target, who gave them the lead at Old Trafford. But in the second half, we did manage to get one back, Rashford driving into the area, managing to find his boy Kobe Mainu to make it 1-1. So it all rested on a single one-off match at the Allianz to decide who was going to the Champions League final. Bayern had the home advantage and made it 1-0 for Elise, 2-1 on aggregate. But in the 60th minute, a penalty from Kochu pulled a goal back, and clearly that had given us some momentum, because 2 minutes later, Rooney Bargi found Rasmus Højlund, who managed to score past Diogo Costa to give us a 1-goal advantage. And as the game closed out, that 1 became 2. Mason Mount dribbling past his man, finding Sardella in that right back spot, one of our new signings, into Højlund, and we got the win. So that meant at the end of the season, we'd be playing a Champions League final. But before we got there, we had to finish our Premier League title running. Our last 2 games of the season were against Brentford and Aston Villa. First up was Brentford, with Man City and us neck and neck really in the title race, and we managed to make it 1-0 through Garnacho. A second was added later on through Frimpong, and we made it 3, Kobe Mainu finding Rooney Bargi back to Samu to get the winner. Now at this point, we were top of the table with 1 game to go. Man City were behind us, and if they were to win and we were to lose, it would go down to goal difference, which we did not want, so we needed to make sure we got a point away against Brentford to secure the title. Now a win would have been much more comfortable against Brentford, but we didn't get that, and you might be wondering why you're watching this clip from the kickoff at the start of the game, and that's because there was no goals. Nothing happened in this match. It was 0-0, and if you're paying attention, you would know that that point would be enough to win the Premier League title. And we had done it in some style. I mentioned we didn't want it to go to goal difference, but with that being said, if it had done, we would have absolutely cruised it still. We had way more over Man City come the end of the season. 82 points, only 1 more point than Man City, and actually less points than we'd got in our 2 previous years in the league, I believe. So it just shows you we needed luck. We need us to do well and everyone else not to do so great, and 82 points was enough to win the title. A very competitive season. City and Arsenal all pretty close to us, but we got the job done. Rashford with the most assists, Højlund with some of the most goals in the league as well. A brilliant year, but could we top it off with the trophy we were here to win, the Champions League final? Last year, you'll remember, we lost in penalties to PSG, so you can imagine my shock when we were facing off against the French giants again. Our team on the day was a great combination of players that we had bought in and players that are still currently at Manchester United in real life, and one of those, Marcus Rashford, helped Højlund get the opening goal, and to complete the day, Marcus Rashford hit a long-range free kick, and that goal helped secure a Champions League trophy for Manchester United, a Premier League win, a UCL win. We set out to do it in 4 years, and thankfully we managed to do it, making progress every single season. At the same time, we got the club's facilities to a brilliant place with some of the best in the world, and financially, whilst the club balance doesn't look great, we'll get some Premier League money in soon, which will actually sort that out, and the debts and loans started off way higher than this, nearly £1 billion I believe at the start, and now we only owe 200 million in debt, so we've improved that as well. And what we've really built here is a team spirit at United where everyone is contributing. I mean, Yamal was one of our best players this season, even though he only scored twice. We had Højlund with 36, Rashford with 28, 13 goals from Garnacho, 22 from Kobbie Mainoo, who has become one of the world's best midfielders at this point. Mason Mount, Rooney Bargi, Frimpong, even Erkan Koçu managed to chip in with 13 goals across the course of the year. 9 from Dina Mbimbe, Samu Amoradian scoring 13 goals as well. We've really got a team stacked with talent that is ready to go for the future. So if any of you want to save files from this on the Patreon, you can join in at a certain point and do a better job than I did, or continue from here on out with a brilliant Manchester United team, which hopefully you can turn into regular league winners and Champions League winners. I'm very happy with this rebuild. Obviously, this has been a new format to what we've normally done. A multi-episode rebuild isn't something I've done for a long time. So let me know if you enjoyed it. Thanks for all the support on the series. I've put 2 episodes out at the time of recording so far, and it's all gone very well. So thank you all for it. Check out the Patreon, like the video, subscribe, but most of all, thanks for all the support, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.